But first tonight I want to start with a story that you won't see on prime time, because do we really care what happens in the northeast? But the fact is, nature's fury continues to wreak havoc in many parts of the country, particularly the northeast. Incessant rains and floods have now marooned lakhs of people in the 4 northeastern states, particularly Assam. The Prime Minister has now directed Minister of State of Home Kiran Rijiju to personally monitor and supervise the relief and rescue operations. Tonight, I want to start my bulletin on the agony of Assam.
Anger is brewing in Assam. Their misery due to floods is piling up and no relief is coming. The victims of floods in Assam are losing their patience. The frustration is understandable. The floods have been devastating this year. Their lives have come to a standstill. Floods in Assam have so far claimed more than 40 lives, and nearly 50,000 in the villages have left their homes and are living in temporary relief camps. This is not the story of Assam alone. More than 15 lakh have marooned in 4 northeastern states, including Assam, Nagaland, Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh. 4 people lost their lives after a bridge collapsed in Nagaland's Dimapur. In Arunachal Pradesh, 13 people died in a massive landslide triggered by rains in Papumpare district. The flood and rain tragedy in the northeast has caught the Prime Minister's attention. The Prime Minister has dispatched Minister of State Kiran Rijiju to personally monitor and supervise the relief and rescue operations. The situation in North India is also alarming. Heavy rains in Uttar Pradesh and a flood alert in Uttarakhand.
अभी जो वर्तमान का है, गंगा का जल स्तर 293.10 हो गया है, जो वार्निंग लेवल से 10 सेंटीमीटर ऊपर चल रहा है और खतरे के निशान से करीब 90 सेंटीमीटर भी नीचे है.
Year after year, the same regions face the same problems when monsoons hit the country. In the absence of real and effective solutions, nothing changes on the ground. There is no end to the suffering of the people. With Nitesh Srivastava from UP, Vikash in Assam and Mudit from Uttarakhand. Bureau Report, India Today.
My take tonight at the top of the news. Floods in Assam are seen as an annual ritual, which is perhaps why the story rarely makes it to the national prime time headlines across most channels in this country. But that cannot be an excuse for our failure to hold the authorities responsible for the lack of adequate disaster management. Think about it. A little waterlogging in the major metros leads to instant outrage. Assam suffers, it appears, from a tyranny of distance. It's time to redress the imbalance. Time to realize that a flood in Assam deserves to be highlighted and reported on aggressively. Let me turn from Assam to the story that should also trouble us, because there are 2 contrasting images of this great country that I want to offer you. On the one hand, you can see how India has united against terror across the country from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Prayers pouring in for the victims of the Amarnath Yatra from across the country. On the other hand, an image that should worry every Indian. An imam in Hisar in Haryana was dragged, heckled and forced to utter a patriotic slogan. When he refused to do so, he was ultimately slapped by a mob of Bajrang Dal workers. Now, these images are taking place within 48 hours of that gruesome attack on Amarnath Yatris in Anantnag on Monday. Today, Rahul Gandhi began the political war, took to Twitter to fire at Prime Minister Modi, blamed the government for flawed policies that he said were responsible for the spilling of innocent bloods in Kashmir. Let's take a look at the politics over Kashmir terror.
जिन्होंने हिंदुस्तान के लिए सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक किया है, उनके खून के पीछे आप छुपे हुए हो, उनकी आप दलाली कर रहे हो.
9 months ago, Rahul Gandhi set off a political storm with these comments. Comments which came just a week after the surgical strike against Pakistan. Comments which gave the ruling party ammunition to paint the Gandhi sign as anti-national and anti-armed forces. And now, less than 48 hours after 7 Amarnath Yatris were shot dead, Rahul Gandhi has launched another broadside against the Prime Minister. Accusing Modi of creating space for terrorists in Kashmir, Rahul tweeted that BJP's short-term alliance with PDP has cost India massively. Importantly, Rahul claimed that Modi was gaining personally at the expense of India's strategic loss and the sacrifice of innocent Indian blood. Where India should have stood as one with these victims of terror, what emerged after the terror attack was pure partisan politics.
Kashmir থেকে কন্যাকুমারিকা আজকে কন্যাকুমারীদের কাছে অমরনাথ এদের জন্য জ্বলছে দার্জিলিংও এরাই জ্বালিয়েছে
Rahul has been on an unprecedented offensive against Modi the past week, attacking him for being a weak Prime Minister, to questioning his silence on China, to holding him responsible for the attacks on Amarnath Yatris, setting the stage for a massive showdown in the monsoon session of Parliament beginning Monday. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what does the politics that's being played out over terror after the Amarnath Yatra really mean? Joining me now, Shashi Tharoor, Senior Congress MP and someone who heads the Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament, and also joining me is Sambit Patra, the BJP spokesperson. But to you, Mr. Tharoor, I have before me the tweets that Rahul Gandhi has put out today, saying Modi's policies have created space for terrorists in Kashmir. Short-term political gain for Modi from PDP alliance has cost India massively. Modi's personal gain is India's strategic loss and sacrifice of innocent Indian blood. Is Rahul Gandhi telling the country that terrorism began in Jammu and Kashmir only after Mr. Modi took power and the PDP-BJP alliance came to power in Kashmir? There has been a lot of innocent blood spilt in Kashmir going back to the 1980s, dare I say, when the Congress was accused of rigging an election.
Look, Rajiv, he's certainly not saying that the violence only began after this, but he's certainly saying it's got worse. We've had an unfortunate combination of two rather ominous trends in the last few years. We've seen an increase in cross-border terror and violence, the attacks on Pathankot, on Uri, on Nagrota, and at the same time we've seen a dramatic increase in the tensions within the state, an inability to control security within the state, and, as you know, rampant violence and disaffection. Which of the two were more responsible for the tragedy yesterday in Amarnath, we don't know. But ultimately, the bottom line is that those responsible for security have let down the nation. And therefore, we as a responsible opposition party feel duty-bound to point out that those who are in power in Delhi and in the state, which means the BJP essentially, have some answering to do. They have to be accountable to the nation about why they were created a situation in which this could occur.
No, but Mr. Tharoor, it's just about 24 hours since this terrible tragedy occurred, a little more than 24 hours, and you have the leading politician of the opposition blaming Narendra Modi's government for a terror attack that has taken place in Kashmir that, let's be honest, could have taken place at any time, at any place, even in the past. My point is, isn't this the time for the government and opposition to come together, sit across a table and ask each other, what can we do to end this cycle of violence? Is this the right time to be trying to score political points over dead bodies?
First of all, let me stress that all of us in the Congress Party began by expressing our anguish and our solidarity with the victims, the families, those who've lost dear ones. I mean, that is the first priority for all of us. And secondly, of course, we united with the government in condemning the cowards who conducted this shameful killing, and there too there is no division. It's only on the third element that we are divided from the government, and that is on the question of responsibility. They have chosen a particular political arrangement in Kashmir, which they do not seem to have managed terribly well, and they are also in power in Delhi. They are ultimately responsible for security. What have they done? Have they investigated this? Do they have an explanation for what happened and why? Can they tell the nation what they're going to do about it? These are legitimate questions, Rajdeep. You can't delegitimize the responsible role of an opposition in raising these questions. As for the government and the opposition sitting together, the government has to take the initiative. They're the ones in power. They hold all the cards. If they want to associate the opposition with their efforts and they would like to work with us going forward, it's for them to take the lead. I don't think we can sit here clamoring to be allowed in, as it were, into their graces.
You know, the worry that I have, Sambit Patra, is that as the politics plays out, I'm seeing the darker side of what perhaps the terrorists want. Kashmir has united against the Anantnag attack, but in Haryana, BJP ruled Haryana. Today we had, or last night we had, terrible scenes of Bajrang Dal supporters going to an imam in a mosque and insisting he say Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and then pulling his beard when he didn't. Now this is the last thing that we need. It appears that such groups are playing into the hands of the terrorists. This is where the politics over terror can have a darker side. Why is it that this happens in a BJP ruled state?
Rajdeep, respectfully, I would say that though this is not the topic of discussion today, because we have to focus on the topic proper, that is the Anantnag attack on the...
No, these individuals, no, 1 minute. No, 1 minute. These individuals claim that in the aftermath of the Amarnath Yatra, in the aftermath of the Amarnath Yatra attack, they went and did this.
I know that, I have seen. Well, Rajdeep, I know of the incident, and let me answer that. Give me some time. Number one, yes, if such an incident has occurred, this is absolutely reprehensible and we have to condemn such kind of incidents. Rather, in such an hour, we all need to stand together, and we certainly need not allow any kind of religious divide to creep in between the Hindus and the Muslims of this country. But coming to the topic proper, that is whether Mr. Rahul Gandhi and the other politicians of this country should unite together or should not play this kind of politics that we are seeing. Let me tell you, Mr. Shashi Tharoor is a very erudite speaker. He's an intelligent man. And though I cannot see him on the television right now, but I can well guess that within his heart he must be finding it very difficult to defend what Mr. Rahul Gandhi has tweeted. He has spoken the truth. Mr. Shashi Tharoor has spoken the truth that this is a democratic country, and in a democratic country the government needs to answer the question of the opposition. We are not denying that. You have the right to question us, Mr. Tharoor, but the way you put your question, the way you frame your question shows the attitude of the opposition, shows the attitude of your leader. Over here, the question that was framed by Mr. Rahul Gandhi is absolutely appalling. The mathematics, I would say, please don't mind my words, I would quote unquote, that would be called as a bloody mathematics. I mean, he says that, look, it is Mr. Narendra Modi's personal gain is equivalent to the blood of the innocent Indians. Please, let's not play this kind of politics. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi has been a repeat offender. He began by coining the phrase "Khoon ki dalali," if you remember, after the surgical strike, and thereafter
but you will concede, Mr. Patra, while you go on this long narrative, you will concede that your party's Kashmir policy at the moment is in shambles. You must concede that. You went into this alliance possibly with good intentions. I don't doubt that. But at the end of the day, and I have the figures to show you, civilian deaths have gone up year on year from 2014 since this alliance took over. So you cannot escape also questions being asked.
Rajdeep, allow me some time, because most of the questions are bound to come to my way. So certainly the bigger chunk of time has to be thrown to me.
Keep your answer short.
And most important, Number one, and most importantly, I mean, this unholy nexus between the Bharatiya Janata Party and the PDP is allegedly blamed for whatever is happening in Kashmir. Absolutely wrong. It is not as if terrorism did not exist before this so-called nexus. And why were we forced into this kind of alliance? We were forced into this kind of alliance because of a democratic result of an election. One with 28 seats and one with 25 seats. What do you expect? Should we not respect the democratic, syncretic culture of this country? We had to do that. And we had to come together for governance.
The problem is you go into an alliance an alliance in the valley, and I showed you the pictures that are being played out shamefully in Haryana's BJP. You can't run with the secular hare and hunt with the communal hound. You can't be with the PDP and want to reach out to Muslim communities in Kashmir and then play the kind of politics I see in Haryana. That's my worry. And this has happened a day after the Amarnath Yatra. It sends out a terribly wrong signal.
To this my answer is, see, those in Amarnath attack, those of you in the sense, not you in particular, Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai, those who are alleging us, those of you who are questioning us and saying that, well, what is happening in Haryana, are absolutely silent in Amarnath, saying that, well, let's not make this a Hindu-Muslim issue, because if we make this a Hindu-Muslim issue, the composite and the syncretic culture of this country, and particularly of Kashmir, would be divided. So it is not that the Muslims kill the Hindus, it is just the terrorists who have no religion. But then we suddenly bring in Haryana over a frivolous, I would not say frivolous,
no, it's not frivolous.
I have denounced that, over a lone standing incident, and then say, I have said that, it's not frivolous, but over a lone standing case, and say that, well, here is the Hindu man who is in fact pulling the beard of a Muslim man. So why do we play this Hindu-Muslim card over here?
You know, one minute, Mr. Patra, just a minute. You know, in fact, one of the best statements made after the attack in Amarnath was by your Home Minister, by our Home Minister Rajnath Singh, who spoke about the need to promote Kashmiriyat, to believe that in a way Hindus and Muslims could work together at a time like this. But I just want to come to you, Shashi Tharoor. There will be those who will say that's political correctness, that at the end of the day there is a problem. There is a problem, many say, of jihadi terror linked to Islam, which has been exported from Pakistan, partly homegrown, and we are finding it difficult to combat. At a time like this, do we blame the BJP-PDP alliance for that? Or do we blame the failure of our political leadership over years, stretching back to your party and its alliances in Kashmir, for where we have come today?
Look, undoubtedly there have been good periods and bad, Rajdeep, and as you say, there is a lot of blame to go around historically. We are dealing with the present, and unfortunately this is a bad period. This is a period which is much worse than any in recent memory, and it's entirely appropriate for us to expect the government to be accountable for it. You know, I would love to see the return and revival of Kashmiriyat, and though I have a great deal of respect for Rajnath Singh ji, the fact remains that Kashmiriyat is being increasingly eclipsed by voices of unreason and extremism on both sides. You are seeing, frankly, even some of these so-called militant groups saying that it's no longer Kashmir that they're fighting for, but Islam. So there is extremism on that side coming up as well. And as we've seen on the Indian side, we have a shambolic government, the unholy nexus, as Mr. Patra called it, his phrase, not mine. And this unholy nexus has clearly found us in a position where 7 yatris going on a spiritual pilgrimage and returning from there are now returning home in a coffin. To my mind, these are things that the government absolutely is responsible for, in the sense that the policies they have undertaken as a government and as a ruling party, as well as the overall atmosphere within which the situation is evolving, all of this have raised legitimate doubts on the part of the minds of the people of this country as to whether they're up to it. Whether the combination of the central government in Delhi, the BJP-PDP nexus in Srinagar, whether they are able to keep Indians safe in Kashmir.
Are you therefore saying, Mr. Tharoor, as some are advocating, that there should be president's rule in Kashmir? Because the worry is that that will hardly solve the problem. My worry is after every such terror attack, there's a lot of hand-wringing, there's a lot of rhetoric. But the fact is, no one wants to address the core issues that underlie the problems today in Kashmir. The fact is that there is terrorism being exported from Kashmir, from Pakistan into Kashmir. There is homegrown terrorism, and we have had now more than a quarter of a century of it.
Yes, but it hasn't been the same kind of phenomenon during this quarter of a century. There have been distinct changes and distinct phases. There have also been relatively tranquil periods in the valley during which tourism returned, economic growth revived, there seemed to be an effective political process, 68% turnout in the elections. You've had also all of this going on. And now we have a sliding back. What we have witnessed in the last 3 years of the BJP-PDP government in Srinagar and the BJP government in Delhi has undoubtedly been a decline in the law and order situation in Kashmir that is seriously worrying, and it's been accompanied by a deterioration in the situation with Pakistan and an increase in cross-border attacks. Cumulatively, the picture is not a pretty one, and you can't expect us as the opposition to sit here being complacent. We are angry, we are concerned, we are worried, we are anxious, and we are right to say so.
Let me therefore ask you in conclusion,
Rajiv, can I answer that,
therefore,
please?
can I ask you, Mr. Patra, in conclusion, would you at least accept that the alliance, which as I said would have started with good intentions, has floundered? And today, therefore, you have to go back to the drawing board, that you are faced with a challenge which you cannot only meet by saying we will send in more armed forces. You will need to find other ways to try and resolve this now.
Rajdeep, you have to understand one thing. Since we are dealing with terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir over here, we have to understand the root cause, and we have to stop the politicking that is mostly happening. The root cause is terrorism, radical Islam, and whether we are addressing that or not. Unless we address that, you have absolutely right to state that it's not that terrorism began only after PDP and BJP began their alliance. Rather, almost for a quarter of a century, this gradually crept into the country, I would say in form of radical Islam. And in the garb of secularism, most of the political parties turned their eyes to the other side because they wanted to be politically correct. They did not want to address, they did not want to call the spade a spade. And today when the time has come, let me tell you what Mr. Tharoor was pointing towards, a lawless situation in Kashmir. When did this escalate? I would say the law and order situation is still manageable, maintainable and good. But why did it escalate? It escalated after Burhan Wani's killing, after Burhan Wani's neutralization. Because all was hunky-dory till Burhan Wani and the likes of Burhan Wani were giving political protection. The day Burhan Wani was neutralized, it all went down the drain because they felt it was a sense of entitlement for them. But this government is a strong government. This government is not going to give any kind of political protection to the perpetrators of terrors or to the separatists. We are going to go, let me pick up this phrase from the army chief, helter-skelter after them.
Let me therefore ask you, Mr. Tharoor, in conclusion, if you were in government, what would you do any differently? Today, Rahul Gandhi is attacking Narendra Modi. Please tell me, if he was in Narendra Modi's chair, what would he do differently?
Well, that's an impossible question to answer because we're not privy to all the internal information that understandably must remain confidential, the intelligence and both the relationship with Pakistan on the other side of the border as well as some of the internal security information. All we know, however, is that it hasn't been terribly well managed because since the killing of Burhan Wani, as Sambit Patra points out, there has been a terribly mismanaged situation in which large numbers of civilian casualties have occurred in Kashmir, adding to the alienation there, and large numbers of cross-border terror attacks have happened from on the other side. So basically we have a situation in which the government and security elements have been found wanting, both domestically and across the LOC, and that seems to me to suggest a severe lack of either coherence or effective implementation on the part of the government.
Let's leave it there. Shashi Tharoor, Sambit Patra, appreciate your joining me on the news today. Let me now turn to another politician today who's facing the heat. He's facing a string of corruption charges and an ultimatum to come clean or quit the cabinet of Nitish Kumar. But that did not deter Bihar's Deputy Chief Minister and Lalu Prasad Yadav's son, Tejasvi Yadav, to act today in an extremely high-handed manner towards the media. Tejasvi's security guards and RJD supporters assaulted a group of media persons as the Bihar Deputy Chief Minister claimed he was innocent. Guess what his claim for innocence was? That he didn't even have a moustache when the alleged corruption took place. The question is, why doesn't Lalu and his son first act against their own party goons? That deserves more media attention. After a controversial investigation into the alleged abduction and rape of a popular Malayali actress, the Malayali actor Dilip has now today been remanded to police custody for 2 days. He was denied bail by an Ernakulam court as well for his alleged involvement in the actress's assault. Just think about it. Has a popular actor actually given a supari to have a co-star and an actress raped? It's a story that should shock not just Kerala, but the entire country.
To abduct and sexually abuse a Malayalam actress. has now been sent to police custody for 2 days to be questioned further. The victim was a business partner of Dileep and was allegedly the one who informed Dileep's then wife, Manju Warrior, of his extramarital affair with Kavya Madhavan, who is now his wife. It all began on February 2017 when 6 men sexually abused the actress in a moving vehicle. Search began for the main suspect, Pulsar Soni, the very next day. On February 21st, suspicion rose about Dileep's link with Pulsar, but expectedly Dileep denied any connection with him. In fact, on April 20th, Dileep lodged a complaint of being blackmailed.
എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത് ഞാൻ പോലീസിനോടും കോടതിയോടൊക്കെ ഞാൻ നേരിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞോളാം. കാരണം എന്നെ പ്രതിയാക്കണമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് കുറേ ആൾക്കാരെ ചുറ്റും എനിക്ക് ഒന്നും ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല.
But an image was released by a local news channel which showed Dileep with a fan and Pulsar in the background. And then came the high-profile arrest.
There is no allegation against the actor that he has personally done something, either wrongful restraint, rape, attack, abduction, insult or whatever.
സംഭവിച്ച ആളും അതിനെ പ്രതിയായിട്ടുള്ള ആളും എല്ലാം ഞങ്ങളുടെ കൂടെ തന്നെ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളുകളായിരുന്നു. സത്യം പറഞ്ഞാൽ കേരള ജനതയെ പോലെ തന്നെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയൊരു ഷോക്കിലാണ് ഞാൻ.
This is a most hated criminal activity done by a senior artist from Malayalam film industry, Mr. Dileep.
Stalwarts of the Kerala film industry coming out and making their statement saying that they have distanced themselves from him for now. They have removed him from the as well as from the Directors Federation. So as of now, he stands alone without backing from the industry for now. But he will have to fight his case because till today, he says he's not guilty.
On Tuesday, local Congress workers even carried out a protest march against the actor. And now it's time for some real-life drama behind bars. Rohini Swami in Ernakulam, Bureau Report, India Today.
We're calling it Kerala's dirty picture. Up next is the first of our newsmakers tonight. We'll be joined by the opposition's vice presidential candidate, Gopal Gandhi. I'll ask him, why is he contesting an election that many believe he has little chance of winning? Yesterday, 18 opposition parties came together to name Gopal Krishna Gandhi, the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, their joint candidate for the vice president's post. It's a battle, though, that the former West Bengal government could well lose because the ruling NDA clearly has the numbers in the vice presidential election. So why is Gopal Gandhi contesting an election at all? He's our newsmaker tonight. Listen in to him. And joining me now is the opposition's vice presidential candidate, Gopal Gandhi is with us. Appreciate your joining us, Gopal Krishna Gandhi. The first question that I need to put to you, are you waging what some would call only a symbolic fight? Because the numbers in the electoral college for the vice president are heavily stacked in favor of the ruling NDA.
I would not call it either symbolic or a fight. I would say that this is a contest as envisaged by the Constitution, and one should neither presume victory nor fear defeat.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're saying it's a serious contest. So you are fighting in the belief that you can win, despite the fact, as I said, that in the parliament, in the two houses, the electoral college is heavily weighed in favor of the government. You still believe this is a serious fight that you are in. You are here to win.
I believe it is a serious contest, and I believe that a contest should not be entered into with the fear of defeat.
What prompted you to take up this challenge then, Gopal Krishna Gandhi? Because in the past, your name has done the rounds. There were reports that you were offered this in 2007 by Sonia Gandhi. What prompted you in 2017 to take up this challenge?
I'm glad you asked me that question, Rajdeep. What prompted me to reflect very briefly and respond very quickly after my reflection was this: when in our competitive, contentious times, when cynicism and suspicion is rife, and such an offer comes refreshingly, it should be accepted. And I thought if the opposition can be united, so can the country be united on the side of certain values which I believe are under challenge, attack and threat.
You know, when you say that, it seems that you are challenging, in a sense, the ruling alliance and the way it is running the country at the moment. I recall a column that you wrote soon after Mr. Modi came to power, making the point that only 31% of India had voted for the BJP. This is being used today against you to suggest at the end of the day that far from being a consensus candidate, you are someone who's being pitched as essentially an anti-Modi, anti-BJP candidate.
I am not responsible for interpretations of my candidature. I would say this, that when I wrote what I wrote, which you have just quoted, and you can refer to it, I referred to the 31% to say to our new Prime Minister that you represent 31% of those who have voted for you. But now that you are Prime Minister, you are in charge of the whole country. The idea is that the elected representatives have the power. They have the power and indeed the responsibility to govern the country. But the constitutional authorities have the responsibility and the duty to counsel the government when it does what it does. And I want to think of my candidature in that architecture.
Gopal Gandhi, as I said at the start, the numbers are stacked against you. Are you then asking for something that has often been asked or sometimes been asked in the past, for a conscience vote? Is Gopal Gandhi entering this election of Vice President asking the Electoral College of MPs to look into their conscience? Are you seeking a conscience vote or a party vote?
I am not seeking anything that is not already envisioned in the Constitution and in the procedures of the election of the President and the Vice President. Why is the MP given a secret ballot? The MP does not vote secretly when he is voting for bills, but why is it for this election of the President and the Vice President the MP given the protection of secrecy, so that she or he can consult her or his own conscience and in the cloister of private contemplation vote fearlessly and anonymously?
So you are asking for a conscience vote.
Or his choice.
So you are asking for a conscience vote.
A conscience vote.
So you are asking for a conscience vote effectively.
I am asking for the diligent exercise of the privilege of secret ballot.
But will you take on I mean, the fear would be that far from being a consensus candidate, you would be, some would say, a divisive candidate, because you are openly speaking out against the BJP and its politics. So why should anyone who's associated with the BJP or a supporter of the BJP choose Gopal Gandhi as their vice presidential candidate?
I have spoken and written with candor. I have spoken and written with concern. But I have not spoken and written with either conceit or with cynicism. I have criticized the Prime Minister, I have criticized this government, but as anybody, including the Prime Minister himself, would know, that I have spoken from the standpoint of a well-wisher of the government as the government.
Right.
And I have said that this country, which is a plural country, which has the heritage of Akbar, Dara Shikoh, and in our times Gandhi, Nehru and Ambedkar, is not meant to curdle up into Hindu and Muslim, majority and minority, into caste and the other divisions. And I look upon my candidature, I'll just say this in a postscript to what I was saying, I look upon my candidature not as a political candidate, even a non-political candidate playing a political role, but a citizen candidate.
Mr. Gandhi, you say you are a citizen candidate, but you are also the grandson of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, of Mahatma Gandhi. Is that a big calling card and asset that you're going to take, that brand name of this famous family surname, into this election?
Rajdeep, thank you for reminding me of something which I don't keep in my mind at all, namely my descent from Mohandas Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi had no family, as Mahatmas and saints do not have families. Mohandas Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi did. I am descended from Mohandas and Kasturba. From the Mahatma, all Indians are descended. all Indians are his kin. If they do not want to be his kin, that is a different matter. But all of them are his kin. He may not be considered by everyone as father of the Indian nation. He did not consider himself to be the father of the Indian nation. But he has been throughout the time that he has not been with us, these last 70 years, been regarded by the people of India as still the spirit and the soul of India and its conscience. And I think that conscience belongs to the citizens of India, not to any individual. And I am one of those citizens. And as one of those citizens, I accept your description of me as descended from Gandhi.
So when you go to possibly parties which are on the fence in this election, will you go and say, look, I am in the descendant of Mohandas Gandhi, that's one reason you should vote for me, or you believe that has nothing to do with this election?
Rajdeep, if I ask anybody to vote for me because I'm descended from Gandhi, I do not deserve that vote. I would forfeit any claim to a vote if I were to make that facetious and pompous claim. If I'm descended from anyone, I am descended from that person biologically. Ideologically, I have made my own choice, and that choice is the future of India as a plural society and a federal polity comprising of honest individuals run governmentally by a sincere, non-despotic and clean-minded government.
Gopal Gandhi, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining me and telling us why you've decided to contest as the opposition's candidate for Vice President. Thank you. And I wonder if Gopal Gandhi would perhaps have been a better presidential candidate for the opposition than even a Meera Kumar. Our consulting editor Boria Majumdar caught up with newly appointed India coach Ravi Shastri. The former captain spoke to him about his relations with Virat and claims he enjoys the entire confidence of the Indian team. Take a look at what Shastri had to say.
Ravi, one question that is doing the rounds. I mean, Virat got a lot of flack in the media because of the Anil Kumble issue, but no one's heard his side of the story. What is your take on the whole thing from Virat's perspective?
I have not spoken to him. I will speak to him at certain stage, but I'm a kind of guy who doesn't carry baggage. So what's happened in the past, what's happened in those 12 months, not my problem. I will start afresh. I will start from where I finished, okay, and take the troops forward. Whatever I have to discuss with Virat will stay between Virat and me.
Ravi, the one question which the whole country wants to know is, the Indian cricket team wanted Ravi Shastri is the message that is coming out. Despite your differences or personal differences, if any, with Sourav Ganguly, the interview went very well, but most importantly, the Indian cricket team was united behind Ravi Shastri. Can you give me a reason why?
I must have done something good, Boria. And it's an honor when you speak about the team speaking about you in that fashion. For me, I just went out and did a job. I enjoyed my time there, and I enjoyed the trust they had in me and the trust I had in them.
We'll have more on that interview with Ravi Shastri later today. But forget the men cricketers and all the politics for a moment. India lost their World Cup match in the Women's World Cup today to the champions Australia. But there was someone who once again scored. Mithali Raj is an incredible cricketer.